This podcast is powered by the pros at Paschal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned, Arkansas operated. GoPaschal.com.
Bill King joining us from Nashville Sports Radio, hosting 6 to 9 on WNSR. He is the king of college football talk, and we are 23 days from the start of Arkansas football season. Most teams will start 25 days from today. Bill, how you doing?
Hey, guys. Doing well.
Good. I saw the coaches poll came out yesterday. 7 teams in that coaches poll are on the Arkansas schedule. 6 out of the SEC and Oklahoma State. Now, this is just a snapshot of what, well, I guess I wonder how many coaches do you think actually do the voting here? Or do they just have somebody else kind of do the voting for them?
I think most coaches have sports information, somebody there doing it. They don't want to mess with that. They don't care. Very few people care. Remember Spurrier used to start the year voting Duke just because he was there once. So there's all kinds of shenanigans that go on. But if I'm a coach, I'm not caring about somebody's top 25 or mine or whatever. I'm getting somebody to do it. As long as they don't embarrass me, I don't really care.
Got to go by brand name in so many cases, though. But it really was a little bit jarring to see Ole Miss at number 6, because if you're going by brand name, they usually would not be ranked number 6 in the country. Going by a look at their roster and by the hype, maybe you would go by that as well.
There's a stat. That's the highest they're ranked in the preseason since 1970. That's Johnny Vault's last season. And I believe they were ranked 5th that year. You got to go back. Again, that's over 50 years.
Do they have the physicality, Bill, in the trenches especially? But, you lost Junkins, who I think, I mean, you can have a short list of who you think their best running back in college football is. I think Junkins is if he's 100% healthy. But are they physical enough that you think to run this table?
They have, through the portal, become big and strong, much more so. 2 starters from the Washington O-line, the North Carolina left tackle, tons of defensive linemen, including Walter Nolan. Here's the 2 things you've got to ward off. Number 1 would be history. History doesn't let you rise up and then stay there very often when you're not a blue blood. That's number 1. And number 2, we don't really know yet, because we're in the embryonic stages, what throwing a whole bunch of transfer portal, not only personalities, but money in one locker room and the delicate ecosystem that a locker room is. And that's going to be interesting. I'm not predicting anything, but you know as well as anybody, locker rooms are very delicate. And if it goes south, it can get really bad. That will be interesting to see if any of that blows up.
Well, you even mentioned one of the guys that had come into Ole Miss from A&M, Walter Nolan. And we're going to talk about a cautionary tale about talented rosters that are being paid a lot of money that get blown up, and you don't have any, really much to show for it. Just look at Texas A&M from at least the previous 2 years, and heck, for most of Jimbo Fisher's tenure there.
And those were top-ranked recruiting classes from a few years ago, and several of those guys are gone, including Walter Nolan. But, yeah, it's we don't really know. Now, we know we've seen locker rooms for a million years, right? And there's any number of things that can separate a locker room. But we've never really had cash flow like this and then new bodies. I'll tell you a quick story. Tony Vitello said 2 years ago when they brought Maui Ahuna in, the shortstop from Kansas, and word got out that he got more money than he got. He said it was horrible for the locker room. It was a bad mess that year about the first third of the year. And then you had the whole Chase Burns thing go down at the end. That's something that can happen.
Yeah, that's certainly something that can ruin expectations when guys don't get along very well. And, that's also just like one of the things when you're looking at it. And again, it's the coaches poll doesn't matter very much when you're looking at this, but how do you really know? That's a thing that you just can't figure out until guys are on the field and you're watching it in person or you're watching it on television. I mean, you can tell who's a great athlete. You can tell, by 40 times or how high they jump or arm strength or what they've done previously, at least that they were a productive player somewhere else. What you don't know is how everybody fits together. In today's day and age of amazing player movement, That's the big unknown. I guess it's been an unknown in college football for a long time, but it's just difficult because you don't have that kind of continuity from one year to the next that you're used to.
The other one, and not that was a surprise with Ole Miss, but Michigan being, I believe, 8th, you guys can correct me, it was 7th or 8th. That one surprised me. Now, it's Michigan. I'm not going to avoid that brand, but I think they're getting brand recognition ranking and not necessarily what's returning. Now, their defense should be very stout. Their offense is missing most everything, and that's a problem. I think that's a bit ambitious, that number. Not that it matters. That'll all work out on the field, but that one kind of surprised me.
You think Utah, with their quarterback coming back, should the Big 12 be worried? I mean, is Utah a legitimate title contender for the Big 12 this year?
I think on average they ought to be the pick. Now, not overwhelmingly. That, as we discussed, guys, there's a million ways that league could go. But I think I saw one of the polls or something where they were picked number 1. I think it's reasonable. I think it's pragmatic, and it's probably the best, most consistent program in that league coming into that league right now. And we talked about it, I think, guys. Oklahoma State, there's other teams we can throw in there. Kansas State, Kansas maybe. There's some good teams in that league, but I think Utah should be picked number 1.
I think Utah gets to avoid Kansas State this year in the regular season, if I'm right. But is Cam Rising, if you're going to say dual threat quarterbacks, if he's healthy, is he a short list to be like a top 5 quarterback in the country if he's healthy? Or am I overrating him a little bit?
I don't know that you're overrating him. I don't think I could put him in my top 5. Now, I haven't thought about it, but I'm just perusing the country right now. I don't think I would have him in my top 5. I might have him in my top 10 if I sat down and put it down on paper. But he's a veteran. He's been around forever, guys. He's been through injuries. There's really no scenario other than a national championship that he hasn't been part of or, around. And so there's nothing that league's going to present him that he's not used to.
Half of the SEC is in this preseason coaches poll. There's Georgia, Texas, Bama, Ole Miss, Mizzou, LSU, Tennessee, Oklahoma, and A&M. I think that's 9 teams, so a little more than half.
Right.
What team that's not ranked do you think has a chance to finish the season ranked?
In the SEC.
Yes.
Oh, boy. Auburn.
What do you think's going on at Auburn there? Yeah.
They're bringing in 2 true freshman receivers who will play and are impact. I'm talking about base clears. Arkansas is a huge baseball school, among other things. These are base clearing wide receivers.
Home run.
And they will impact quickly. Now, Peyton Thorne's got to be more consistent at the quarterback position. Now, I'm not going to pick them necessarily to be ranked that high, but if you're asking me, pick the team that I think they're incredibly dangerous. Guys, they had Alabama beat last year, and they had Georgia in peril in the fourth quarter. Now, that was at home, and that was not a very good Auburn team, and they're going to be better.
Auburn's been on a run recruiting wise too. I mean, they right now are they the hottest team in the league as far as recruiting?
Either them or Tennessee. Now, Tennessee just got the top-ranked player in the class of 26. I know that doesn't affect the next season, but Auburn's been and they're flipping guys from Alabama too. You know what's interesting? Alabama owns the state of Alabama. Auburn's a big school too. But if you're just talking about fan base and adoration, it's 99% of that state's Alabama, maybe part of Montgomery. But right now, Alabama's ranked number 2 in the nation, ahead of Auburn, but Auburn's having the better year in state. They're recruiting more nationwide. That's interesting. If you go look at that list, Auburn's doing better, which Alabama always does better in state, but Alabama's still ranked ahead of them.
Bill, with the way it's going to go with the playoff 12, if you're in the SEC and you have 2 losses, you're probably going to be in. I'm starting to look at Tennessee's schedule Oklahoma, Alabama, Georgia. They get Alabama at home, but those might be the only 3 games where they're even close to being not favored. They win one of those games. I don't see anybody else beating them. That would be 2 losses. Is that good enough to get Tennessee in the playoff 12?
You would think so. Now, what we don't know is what kind of 10-2 logjam we have, right? Meaning Big Ten, 10-2, and then we'd have some comparisons to make. But, yes, I would think an average, if you're an SEC team, I don't care if it's the Tennessee brand or whoever, and you go 10-2, I would say there's a better than 50% chance you're in the playoffs. And also, you're probably not playing in a league championship game, which might be an advantage because that's a 1 week you don't get beat up.
And you might be hosting. You might be hosting the first round, too.
Yeah, I mean, it's, again, we don't know the scenarios yet because we hadn't done this to the tune of 12, and in 2 years we're going to 14. But, yeah, that's possible. Also, it's possible for one of our beloved Southern teams to have to go up and play in a tundra somewhere. That's going to be interesting.
See if it's like the Dolphins in the playoffs every year if they've got to go north at all. Hey, last thing, because you'd brought up Michigan a moment ago. I thought the Connor Stallions thing was put to bed, and I know that the notice of allegations came out. The level 1 allegations are all against coaches that are no longer at Michigan, but now Sharon Moore is charged with level 2 allegations. And I guess he could get a show cause. He could be suspended for a game. And do you think this will stick to him?
I mean, it might. It won't have anything to do with whether they win or lose a ball game. It won't affect them that way. They're recruiting well. And it's funny, they interview Harbaugh. The last guy that cares what anybody thinks about him is Harbaugh. Like, oh, Harbaugh, man, they busted him. They started winning because of Connor Stan. That guy doesn't care what anybody on the planet thinks. Let me tell you, if Harbaugh's up on you 50-7 with a minute to go and they've got the ball, they're going to score. And he doesn't care what the media or some fan base or some message board thinks. That's the funniest part of that whole story to me.
Well, and also, I mean, I don't think, look, the guy won everywhere he's been. He won at Stanford, wins at the Niners, takes Michigan as far as they went. I don't know how much the sign stealing thing had to do with it. I think Harbaugh's an amazing coach, and I think he'll do great things with the Chargers. But he's also fun to listen to when it comes down to him talking about himself.
Right. He's a tough guy, man, and unforgiving. That's what he is.
BetOnline is your #1 source for all your betting needs. Get the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports for baseball, boxing, golf, and more. BetOnline continues to be the fastest and easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting and your favorite casino and card games available to play right from your phone. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and get in on the action. Remember to use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts.